on that. So we've got a good guitar. We've got a guitar that is set up well. We've got a guitar that's in tune, and we're ready to learn a few chords before we move on to my other lessons, which start talking about strumming and some picking techniques and patterns. Let me just say before we move on to the chords, the strings, it's good to be familiar with the strings. And when I'm talking about strings, we're going to move from first string down to the sixth string, which first is the highest, second is the next, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So move down like that. And it's good to know what strings these are. And whether you're changing strings, it'll say on the package, this is the E string, this is the A string. So it's starting from the bottom now. The sixth is the low E, E, A, D, G, B, and high E. E, A, D, G, B, E. Now many guitarists, including myself, play in different tunings. That's a whole other thing, whether you'll tune the strings down to a different pitch and get some open sounds. When I do this without fingering a chord, it doesn't sound like much, but in an open tuning, if you strum it, it'll play a chord already. So if you bar it, you've got the chord, different chords moved up according to where you bar the fret. So but we aren't going to worry about different tunings now. We're going to stay in the standard. It's referred to as standard tuning, E, A, D, G, B, E, and learn just a few basic chords. We'll learn a C, F, and G chord for starting out, and you may be familiar with these. Certainly, you can get pictures of these on the internet. But a C chord is basically like this. You're placing your third finger on the fifth string on the third fret, and your second finger on the fourth string on the second fret, and your first finger on the second string on the first fret. Now, it should sound like this. However, when you're just starting out, that's a little bit hard to do, and you might get some of this sound. So now we're going to get into thinking about tone a little bit, and how do we get the best tone out of this guitar that's set up well and tuned up well and ready to play. Well, there's a few things that you need to work on when you're learning chords and you're learning even notes on a guitar. Where you put your finger in proximity to the fret. By the way, these are all frets, these steel wires here in the fretboard. These are frets. Where you put your finger in relation to that will make a big difference on the tone. So if I put my finger, and I don't press very hard, right in the middle of the two frets, I'm going to get a lot of buzzing. So you want to look for the best place to put your finger, and the best place is typically right behind the fret. I've got the same pressure on my finger, but it's right behind the fret, and it gives it a nice clear sound. If I move it down with that pressure, I get a twanging sound right down to a mute. Now if I bring it up too much and put it on top of the fret, it's going to start sounding muted also, which I might want sometimes for effect, special effect, but typically I would want to have my finger right behind the fret where it's nice and clear, and it just kind of rings. So there's the second note of my C chord. So when I've got my fingers right behind the frets, it gives a nice clear sound. And that's what you're looking for. So you want to practice that, and then we're going to move to an F chord, which is a similar shape. You're just taking these two fingers, moving them down two strings, keeping them on the same fret positions, and moving them down to the 3rd and 4th string rather than the 4th and 5th string. Now that's not quite an F chord, that's almost an F chord. We have this pointer finger on the C note, which we need for the F chord, but we also have to cover the 1st string on the 1st fret, and typically that would be done by kind of bending that finger a little bit, just enough to get it to cover both strings, string 1 and string 2 on the 1st fret, and so the chord, the F chord, would sound like this. Now that will definitely, if you haven't learned that yet, take you some time to get that nice and clear. I spent years on it probably, especially barring the F chord, because another way to play that F chord so that you can use the 5th and 6th strings would be to bar it like this, and of course that's how it's very popularly played, because then you can move it up the neck and play out of one chord shape, which is the F chord shape. You get all these different chords: F, G, or F sharp, G, A flat, A flat, B, C, D flat, D, and E flat, and well, I can't get up there. This is a 12-fret guitar as opposed to 14. But anyways, you would get 12 chords out of that F shape. But that's very difficult. That takes some time, and eventually you may want to learn that. But for now, there's many songs, any song you can play with this F chord like this. And of course, you're not, when you're doing this chord, you're trying not to strum or play these 2 strings, because they do not fit in the chord, and they would sound like that. So those you'd want to have just play the first 4 strings. Go back to our C chord, and on the C chord, the way I showed it, we're also not playing the 6th string, because that's not part of the C chord. There is another way to play this chord that allows you to strum all 6 strings, and that would be to change your position a little bit. Put your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, and your pinky on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. Now you've got a G note here, which is part of the C chord, and now it does sound good. But again, that's a little more difficult to do, and for starters, we're going to stick with just play those 5 strings of the C chord. We play the 4 strings of the F chord, and back to the C, and now we're going to learn a G chord. And there's several ways you can shape a G chord or finger a G chord as well.